Hey guys, listen up. So this week I am going to talk about my thyroid journey from hyperthyroidism to beyond. So remember, this is my journey, okay? What I'm going to tell you is not anything that will diagnose you or tell you what to do. It's to give you advice. I am not a doctor. Remember, I play one on TV though. So here is how mine started. So it started a good 20 something years ago. All right. So let's talk about what your thyroid is. It's this nice little butterfly shaped, organ that is right here in your neck. It's actually a gland. And it stores and produces hormones that control pretty much every organ in your body. And it could have havoc on every organ in your body if you don't have it under control. It regulates your metabolism. It's associated with small changes in your body weight and in your energy levels. And mine started with hyperthyroidism, which meant that mine was overactive, which if you saw my picture, my eyes literally bugged out of my head. So how did I find out that I had it? It's hereditary. So I remember I was probably 19, 20 years old. My mom's like, you know, you kind of look swollen in your neck. She's like, you might want to go get it checked out. How did my mom know this? She had 80% of her thyroid removed when she was like a junior or senior in high school. So of course I'm like, all right, well, let me just go get a check because my mom told me to do it, so I'm going to do it. At that time, I was pretty overactive, pretty overactive. And when you're overactive, the thyroid hormones T3 and T4, there's like too much of it given off and your body just can't control it, okay? Once again, thyroid is seriously the epicenter of everything that goes on. There are millions of people that actually suffer from thyroid issues and aren't aware of it. They don't know. So I'm going to talk about what I went through, some signs and symptoms, and from where I was then to where I am today. Like, you know, some people are like, well, I have hyperthyroidism and this, that, and the other. And I have hypothyroidism and I can't lose weight and I can't maintain weight and all these other things. And I'm going to talk about those this week because 20 plus years of dealing with this, I've been through quite a few things with it and I've learned quite a few things and there's still more that I can learn. Remember, I'm not a doctor. First and foremost, if you feel that you have thyroid issues, and your general practitioner sends you for labs, and they come back and say, you're fine. Run for the hills. Find an endocrinologist. Those are people who work with these hormones. So if you're feeling kind of hormonal, and you think that maybe your thyroid is a problem, that is definitely that's a red flag right there, because my symptoms literally were obviously the goiter, which I did have a goiter, which was an enlarged thyroid. I had the bulging eyes, which I didn't even realize that until I kind of looked back at pictures and I'm like, I just have big eyes. I mean, whatever. You know, it could mess with your vision. It could mess with your anxiety. It could mess with irritability and moodiness. So my symptoms were this. At the time that this all happened, I was a nurse's aide in the nursing home. So we were giving people baths and stuff, and I would come back soaking, not from water, from sweating. So one of my symptoms was sweating. My eyes were popping out of my head. My thyroid was, you could literally like feel it in your, and my mom noticed like there wasn't that little divot like in my neck. And she's like, you know, this is where we're seeing the issue. I was sweaty. My hands, like I can remember the doctor putting a piece of paper on my hands and they were like, so I was shaking. Imagine me coming at you with a needle. I also was in phlebotomy at that time. Imagine me coming at you with a needle like that. So yeah, I didn't have any hair loss or anything like that, but sudden weight loss, irregularity in the female area. And now don't think like, oh man, I'm overweight. I wish I had an overactive thyroid because then I would lose weight. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. Because actually, I started to gain weight at one point when I had hyperthyroidism. So, you know, long story short, I go to the doctor, and the reason why I go is obviously because of the neck, and didn't realize that me sweating, I didn't realize that was an issue. I didn't realize that my resting heart rate was actually in the 140s, 130s, 140s. They were not going to let me work at the hospital because I was so out of control with this. So this is not something you want to mess around with. If you feel that you've got these symptoms, definitely go get them checked out. The weight loss, and then like you're in the bathroom all the time. And I'm not talking number one. Number two, sometimes it's not safe to leave the house in certain issues and instances of that. But I just was at the point where I didn't think that anything was wrong with the fact that I was 98 pounds after delivering a child. I thought it was because I was young. I didn't think there was anything wrong with the fact that I was sweating all the time. I just thought I was hot. I kind of thought there was something wrong when my resting heart rate was slightly elevated. That's when I started to take things seriously. 18, 19 years old, I was on a heart medication, and I was also on thyroid medication. I've been on thyroid medication ever since then. So what was the next step? We tried to control it. We tried to control it for quite a few months, and my heart rate just was not coming down. I remember one day when I was working at the hospital, I just didn't feel right, and my supervisor was like, something's wrong. What's wrong? And I was like, I just don't feel all that good. I felt like agitated, nervous, shaky. Occupational health. She sends me up there. They check me out. They're like, your heart rate is like 150. We are admitting you to the cardiac unit. Hello? 19, 20 years old, being admitted to the cardiac unit. That's when things started to change. So now I'm not saying that this is everybody's path that they're going to take if they have hyperthyroidism. I do see people on a daily basis, not that I'm a doctor, but people that tell me that they think they may have the symptoms, and I'm like, look, these were my symptoms. You need to go to an endocrinologist because that person deals with the hormones of it all and knows what's going down. Where I was like, maybe this is just me. Maybe it's cool that I'm thin after having a baby. So what happened was I get admitted to the hospital, and the doctor comes in and he's like, look, we can't control it with this medication. It's like too far out of whatever it was. And we've been doing it for a while and adjusting the medication. It's just not working. So the next step was radioactive iodine. And let's make a long story short and just talk about my hyperthyroidism today. And then in tomorrow's episode, I'm going to lead you down the path of what happened with the thyroid ablation, and also known as the radioactive iodine, and how that all went down and the fun that was behind that. So stay tuned for tomorrow's episode on my journey from hyper and beyond. So I'm like infinity and beyond, like Buzz Lightyear. So from hyperthyroidism and beyond. 20 years in the making. So I will see you guys tomorrow, and we will talk about the radioactive iodine that I had done and how all that went down, and then what happened after that. So once again, if you think that you have some of these symptoms, like I said, you're only like a Google search away from self-diagnosing yourself, right? Don't do that. Do not self-diagnose yourself off of Google or off of what I've just said. If you think you have these symptoms, talk to your doctor. If your doctor says, hey, let's run some blood tests, then okay. But I'm going to recommend seeing an endocrinologist because of the fact that so many times blood tests will come back and then your doctor will say, you know what, your levels are within normal limits. Sometimes that really is not a true factor of everything. I mean, I have some people, like mine is. Some people aren't. And I know that they're like, well, my doctor knows when I'm at this level that I'm where I should be. So just remember that. If you still are feeling the symptoms and you're like, I'm really not liking what this doctor's saying. Remember I talked about second opinions a couple series ago. Get a second opinion. But most importantly, do not, as much as you trust your general practitioner and maybe they, know what they're doing and stuff, there's a story that's going to come out later on as to why an endocrinologist is number one important. Another thing I had to go through real quick, because when your thyroid is enlarged, it could actually press on your windpipe. Okay, so I had to do it was almost like a breathing test, I guess. I remember I had this little plug on my nose, and I had to blow really hard into this thing so they could see that I was giving it all, I guess, on how I was breathing and stuff, so it wasn't compromising my breathing. So, I mean, there were quite a few things that I went through before we said, let's do the radioactive iodine. So tomorrow we will discuss that. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you in tomorrow's episode of My Hyperthyroidism and Beyond. Have a great day, guys. Talk to you later.